welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ET Now's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center on every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight on Direct Connect, experts will answer your questions sent to us earlier, and later on the show, we'll bring you the story of Umojapay, that's on Small Giants. On Direct Connect tonight, Sushant Mitra, founder and CEO of Lead Angels, and Sunil Gupta, angel investor and mentor, will answer all the questions that you sent to us earlier. Take a look. Sunil, Sushant, thank you for your time tonight to run our viewers through all of the questions that have come in. And let's get started then with our first query that's coming to us from Sushant Darekar. Sushant has sent us this question on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow at ET Now is where you can also send us your questions. Sushant says, we're a hyper-local marketplace for services. It is a two-way platform where a customer can find the services for their needs and a service provider can list their services and directly sell them to the target customers. He's written in tonight to our experts to ask why we always showcase only successful startups but not failures. Every MBA level course teaches about successful cases, but we never learn from and about people who have not succeeded. His question tonight to our experts, do you think any small-scale business or startup should first try to learn from the mistakes of its peers before it can possibly look at success stories and therefore learn from these mistakes? Sunil, you seem to have a big smile on your face as does Sushant. Let me come to you.
See, it is said that, your best teacher is your mistakes and failures. So, obviously, you learn a lot when there are some failures, stories, and the failure case studies available. But at the same time, what is also important is that you need to understand what are the success factors of those kind of a venture. Now, having said that, every startup, even if it is in the same product, same business, same geography, is different. So, those formulas are not replicated and applicable to your venture, even though there is a case study available of a failure of a venture.
Sure.
So, you need to apply those learnings of failures very specifically to your own venture, rather than, taking a cut and copy paste to the what has failed there may fail here. It's not possible that way.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, the converse is also true, that there's a lot of very successful companies in the US, people in India have made copy-paste models of that, and those didn't work. Okay. So, a failure in the US could actually also mean that you could be successful in that and doing it here in India.
Okay, but then how do you learn about what's possibly going to work? I mean, don't you base your business model on what someone else is possibly doing with a few tweaks?
No, there are, so those case studies are available in air or in public, that what all models have succeeded and what have failed. So obviously one has to look at in terms of all possibilities that what can go wrong, what can be the worst thing which can happen to me. And there are examples available. So one has to pick up those things. But what we are trying to say is that the 100% of those failure issues may not be applicable to you.
And
so
vice
you need to
versa.
be very, very selectively, and vice versa. Yeah. So it's available. Yes, you should learn from mistakes of others, and so that you don't make mistakes and you become successful.
Okay. So, it is available for you, Sushant, and thanks very much for that question. We don't get asked that question very often here on Leaders of Tomorrow. But while you're looking at the failures as well as the successes of other models, our experts are suggesting look at what applies specifically to you. Our next query is coming to us from Rajat Vashishta. He's tweeted at us to say that he gets resumes, Get Set Resumes, I beg your pardon, was conceptualized as a service with an authentic customer-centric focus. He needs some inputs on how to use social media to attract the right talent. Also, as a single founder, he says he faces difficulty in scaling up his business. He's written in to our experts tonight to ask them what they would suggest.
So, I'm assuming it has something to do with, HR getting resumes and getting putting them online and so on and so forth. So, it's a very, very competitive space. There are established players in this market, and then there are upcoming players. There are players who are using, the newer technologies of artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. So, he needs to actually find a niche for himself rather than trying to be everything for everybody else. And based on that, and that particular niche, target his talent, where are that type. So let's suppose he is looking at a particular category of skills, he should actually build his business around that where he is strong at.
Sure.
In terms of what tools he should use, obviously he should start with SEO, optimize website, and then experiment with the free tools available like Facebook's or LinkedIn of the world. And once he graduates, then he can invest further in those other digital tools to expand his business. Regarding his problems of single founder, yes, single founder has a problem. Even investors are, like they don't look at a single founder company. So if he is not able to found a new partner or founder, he should at least hire some equally kind of a skilled senior employee which complements his skills, because otherwise, even the investors are worried or customers are worried that, if something happens to one founder, what happens to the business. So he should have that kind of, if not next founder, but a complementary skills senior employees hired for his venture.
Sure. Rajat? Thanks very much for that question, and that is what our experts are recommending for you tonight. Our next query is an email that's coming to us from Siddharth Rai. Siddharth has emailed us to say he's in the construction business and he has 2 questions for our experts tonight. He says raw material and banking are his biggest challenges. There's no sand available for the past 6 months, he says, due to which his construction activity has been put on hold, and he says there's no visibility on when the situation will ease up. What can be done in such a situation is his question. Secondly, he says banks who help industries in terms of finance have no fixed timelines in terms of procedural clearing of documents. He wants to understand what can be done and why.
So this is a worldwide phenomenon. Sand is a shortage raw material because it has been used not only in construction but other products like semiconductors and even the glass manufacturing. So, and obviously, there are a lot of, because of scarcity, there are sand mafias which doesn't allow the easy availability of the raw material. So, one can always explore in terms of alternate or substitute, whether it is asphalt or concrete or wood or even those kind of materials, where he can, replicate, because these are recyclable materials, sand is not recyclable kind of that way. So, from that point of view, he can look at the alternatives. The other point is in terms of the bank. See, every bank has defined the matrices in terms of timelines for sanctioning a loan. The problem happens because of the incomplete documentation, incomplete submission of the checklist of the documentation required, and also the incomplete details. So, I would suggest that he should have some kind of a consultant who can help him out, or he can at least visit the website where it is very clearly documented and these are the documentation required and these are the content which is expected from these kind of a documentation. Once that is there, I think the bank has a kind of a timeline defined for processing loans.
Sure.
Yeah, but sand it doesn't get made anymore, so that's the problem. But there are alternative ways in which now sand is available through fly ash from coal and so on and so forth, which he should try and explore.
Okay, and his second part of the question in terms of finance?
Yeah, so is to understand exactly what the bank requires and fulfill them, as Sunil said, so that his documentation should not be having some gaps. And thereafter, yes, he should actually contact the senior authorities and tell them that my documentation is complete, but I am held up because of so and so person, and they will definitely be taken cognizance of.
Sure. All right. Siddharth, that's in response to your question, and do look at alternative, raw material sources, and as well as do look at what you can do in terms of your finance as well, and that's a suggestion from our experts tonight for you. Our last query tonight is coming to us from Mandit the Kinariwala. Mandit has sent us this email to say that he builds products that inspires users to learn with the help of interactive educational games. With a validated product and paying users, he says they're now in the growth phase. He wants to know, in order to keep the momentum going, he wants to know from our experts whether they can recommend best practices to continue developing superior quality products while ensuring the security of his data as he scales his team and his customer base is maintained.
See, educational products essentially should provide experiential learning, immersive content, engagement, interaction with the co-peers or your team members, at the same time interaction with on a larger platform with the social media. So these are the something which also should have an embedded assessment and performance tracking of her.
Sure.
So creating a challenging for the environment for the learner. So these are something. Nowadays, what is happening in terms of best practices, there are artificial intelligence based automatically reconfiguration of the content based on the learning and a roadmap outcomes.
Sure.
So I think she should include those kind of best practices so that it is not a monotonous one product given for a learning to all. It is a customized specifically to a person's learning ability as well as learning outcomes which is defined for him, and the content get kind of configured and presented to him in that form.
Sure.
Right. So I think the best way, to improve your product is to listen to what the customer is saying. And, one is to have a customized product for each learner. The other is also to get feedback from them and try to incorporate, incentivize them to give suggestions. How do you incentivize users to give suggestions and recommendations so that he can keep on improving the product? I think there are multiple ways of securing your data, and people can't take screen printouts and so on and so forth. So there are well established ways of securing that data now.
All right, that's in response to your query. Thanks very much for sending that to us. And on that note, thank you both very much, gentlemen, for being here tonight with us.
Thank you.
Time for a break here on Leaders of Tomorrow. On the other side, Umojapay on Small Giants. Do stay tuned for that. Back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on Small Giants, Umojapay in focus. Post-demonetization, most of India has possibly seen a surge in the number of debit card transactions. Yet, when it comes to rural India and Tier 4 towns, the scenario is entirely different. The population there remains largely unbanked, and to conduct just a single digital transaction, many need to walk miles. However, Umojapay, a fintech startup, is here to cross this very hurdle and serve India's semi-urban population through its POS network. Karishma Vanjani has more from Indore on the story. Take a look.
22 fintech companies around the world are now worth more than 1 billion. But how many of these are bringing digital literacy to the rural areas?
फोन भी यूज़ नहीं करते आते, यहाँ बहुत कम लोग कर पाते हैं। फ़ोन पे बैंकिंग सुविधा है वो भी नहीं करते आती है लोगों को ठीक से, बहुत प्रॉब्लम है यहाँ पर।
फ़ोन है पर रिचार्ज करना नहीं आता, डिजिटल तो यहाँ पर कुछ हुआ नहीं है उसका डिजिटल के बारे में
कि कहाँ है एमटीएम है कि कहाँ बैंक है, हमको मोबाइल चलाते नहीं आता, चार्जिंग कहाँ होता है ये हमें नहीं मालूम है।
थोड़ी और सुविधा लाना चाहिए कि और टाइम बचे हमारा।
ये डिजिटल क्या होता है?
ये डिजिटल क्या होता है?
Today, Leaders of Tomorrow brings you the story of Umojapay, a startup in Indore that's teaching Indian villages how to transact digitally. With kiosks set up at different locations, it's introducing small towns to India's cashless future. They are the difference.
Every startup has a story behind their name selection. How did you round up with such a unique name, Umojapay?
Umojapay is a combination of two words, Umoja and payments. Umoja means unity in Swahili. So we are uniting payments under one umbrella so that the people can get the access to the entire services under one umbrella.
So the startup's elevator pitch is its services to the rural population. Talk to our viewers, how does this B2B startup reach the largely unbanked population of India?
Umojapay is connecting Bharat to India. So back when we were starting off, me and my other co-founder Arif Manji, we were very clear about the idea that we need to cater to the needs of the rural and semi-urban people, because that is where the janta is and that is where the gap is. Today, when a person opens a bank account, if he is not given an access point near to his house, there's a high chance that he will not end up using the account and the whole initiative fails. So Umojapay comes in picture wherein the micro level implementation has to be done so that the rural and the semi-urban people, the unbanked and the underbanked population of India can be addressed to and can be brought into the mainstream financial system. So we catered to the needs of the rural and semi-urban in terms of anything and everything, be it as small as a recharge, to bill payments, to ticketing, remittances, fund transfers, Aadhaar-based banking, Aadhaar payments. So we cover the entire portfolio for the people in those regions.
So what have been the hurdles towards connecting 50 plus villages in India with digitization?
So there are primarily two hurdles which we face. Firstly, in terms of putting up the kiosk, so getting the permissions from the Panchayat region. Though there's a Digital India initiative, but the Panchayat is reluctant in terms of accepting the digital initiatives. And secondly, in terms of acceptance with the retailers, because they were used to cash transactions, they were used to credit from the distributors. While with us, they have to maintain a wallet and everything. But once they understood the benefit of it, they started accepting the platform, and that is where we have grown to 50 plus villages now.
It's interesting you speak about the Digital India program. It's one of the most heavily promoted campaigns by the government right now. I want to understand what steps should the government take to promote socially impacting startups such as yours?
Well, the ground level implementation has to happen from the government end. The government has launched the Digital India initiative, but the department level implementation is not there. So that is where the startups like us are struggling to get the permissions done, get the implementation done on the ground. So government has to push the department so that the overall exercise can be expedited, and startups like or ventures like us can get the benefit out of it.
So Umojapay is largely a fintech company that's built around a socially motivated idea. It's not a social enterprise. So what are your revenue sources? How does the company remain profitable?
So we have a unique subscription-based point of sale solution wherein the retailer can digitize his entire store, can accept payment digitally using QR codes, and can also vend all our value-added services. So that is one of our revenue models. Second revenue model is the transaction fee that we get from the consumer or the service providers whom the service is meant for.
Okay, can you highlight some of the service providers that you have out here?
So service providers are like Airtel, ticketing services like Redbus,
for the recharge,
utility recharges, utility payments basically. So certain cases we get the commissions from them, and certain cases we charge the consumer for the service.
Going back again to the Digital India point, government on the other hand has been talking about a digital cess, that's levying a fee on each digital transaction. How do you think that's going to impact startups such as yours, largely any fintech startup?
It will definitely hamper a lot of fintech companies out there in the market, including us. The reason cash is primary mode of payment in India is because it is free. Secondly, while doing a transaction, at times retailers give out their cash discounts. So government has to come up with a scenario wherein they can absorb such fee for certain time frame, like what they did with the IMPS or the net banking scenario when they started the services. Otherwise, what will happen at the end of the day, the banks will have to squeeze the fintech companies like us, and the overall initiative will fail. Reason cards are not accepted across India, or there's a low acceptance of cards, is because the transaction charge is very high. There's micro level implementation, or the micro merchants cannot accept digital payment because of the charges.
As per a PwC report, India offers the highest ROI on fintech projects, about at 29% compared to a global average of 20%. That only means more competition. So what has been your competitive edge against other businesses in the same sector?
See, a lot of fintech companies revolve around internet users who are in tier 2 and above. What we are catering to is the people who are not on the internet or who are not transacting on the internet. So those janta is basically tier 3 and below. That is where we are catering to.
So the startup is mentored by Rethink Accelerators. On Leaders of Tomorrow, we get a lot of questions revolving around mentorship and the need for mentors. What has been your experience with Rethink Accelerators, and what are the few things an entrepreneur must keep in mind when selecting a mentor?
Mentors and advisors play a very crucial role in any startup. It's like selecting a right product and the right revenue model, like choosing a mentor or an advisor. Our mentor help us in strategizing the overall revenue model. They keep us motivating in what we need to do. They help us in strategic alliances. They help us in getting the investors. So we are right now in talks with certain investors to raise funds so that we can expand our reach. So mentor and advisors have to be matched with the startup's vision. Otherwise, the whole initiative or the whole logic fails with the tie-up.
So what are the future plans looking like? Do you have any plans to expand to larger cities?
We are looking to expand to 10 plus states, having 25,000 plus touch points in the rural and semi-urban population only, because that is where the need is and that is where the janta is. At the end of the day, the micro level implementation has to be done. Now for that, we have specifically came up with India's first solar powered manned kiosk. So that is where Umojapay comes into picture to fill in the gap.
Thanks a lot for speaking to Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you.
डिजिटल इंडिया के बारे में तो बहुत सारा सरकार प्रचार प्रसार कर रही है, लेकिन हम भी चाहते थे कि हमारा गांव भी डिजिटल इंडिया की ओर बढ़े। तो ऐसा सोच रहे थे हम और प्रयास भी कर रहे थे, लेकिन इसी के बीच में हमारे पास अभिषेक भाई आए और अभिषेक भाई ने हमको ये कियोस्क के बारे में जानकारी दी कि ये बहुत सारे मतलब इससे अपन रिचार्ज और बिजली का बिल जो कि जनता जगह जगह भरने जाती है, परेशान होती है, समय ख़राब होता है, तो ये एक जगह स्थायी हो जाएगा। यहाँ पे अपना बिजली का बिल रिचार्ज वगैरह सब मिलता है। तो एक तो ये हो जाएगा, तो फिर ऐसा इन्होंने मेरे को बताया कि अपने को ये फ़ायदा होगा। तो इसलिए मैंने सोचा कि ये मेरे से परमिशन मांग रहे थे कि भैया हमको कहीं भी इसकी एक कियोस्क लगाने की परमिशन दीजिए। तो मैंने बोला कि सबसे बेस्ट जगह तो मैंने कहा यही होगी पंचायत। तो यहाँ पे लोगों का आत्मविश्वास भी बढ़ेगा, क्योंकि क्या पंचायत एक माध्यम होती है, गांव का केंद्र होता है, भरोसे का केंद्र बोल लो, काम का केंद्र बोल लो। तो मैं अधिकतर चीज़ें पंचायत से जुड़ी और रिलेटेड रखता हूँ, चाहे हमारी पोस्ट ऑफिस हो, चाहे पटवारी हो, चाहे हमारा ग्राम सेवक हो, चाहे स्वास्थ्य विभाग हो, इन सबको मैं पंचायत के माध्यम से जोड़ रखता हूँ। तो ये सब गांव को चलाने के लिए, गांव की तरक्की के एक माध्यम होते हैं। तो ये कियोस्क भी मेरे को एक गांव की तरक्की का एक माध्यम लगा, इसलिए मैंने इस कियोस्क को जगह अपनी पंचायत में दी।
The chant of Modi's Digital India has reached even the most remotest villages of India. And digitally enabling these citizens are the entrepreneurs of today, the leaders of tomorrow. In the coming future, one hopes to see more of Umojapays coming up so that we can ensure our 6,38,000 villages reach their true potential.
Completely out of time then on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have anything you want to say to us, to remember you can write in at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. On social media, tweet at me at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now. Our Facebook page is Leaders of Tomorrow and ET now. You can also call us on that number you see on your screen. We love hearing from you. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.